Yeah.
Other thoughts or observations, Tracy? I can see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, and hello to everybody. Going back to Alex, the idea of community college day and maybe having exhibits from different programs and colleges. I guess I would just ask that there be some thought put into ahead of time which programs and colleges are represented, making sure there are rural colleges and urban, large and small, a good variety of programs. Obviously,
Definitely.
obviously some that are represented in Propel as well, but others too. So just I think that would go over well if colleges didn't feel as though they were left out of that decision process.
I'd love to see your aquaculture program.
Yeah.
I was thinking
that was
Tracy.
coming, Chairman Looney.
I mean, and what we can do is we can get the growers to serve oysters, and you'll be the most attractive display at the event.
out of the back of a
Well,
boat.
I wasn't saying it for me, but I do think that there are a lot of programs that at many colleges that are really strong and worth featuring. And I think that we feel a commitment to each other to support all of our colleges. So
Yes.
Well, President Mancini, if I could paint the perfect event, it would be the entire mall full of community college programs, which is almost, a quarter of a mile long. So, but I mean, thank you. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So, like I said, we're in the beginning stages of thinking through that, but that's a great point.
Yeah, we'll ask Alex to be coordinating, and of course, all of us coordinating closely with the Presidents Association, Tracy, to make sure we're getting that good representation geographically across the state, large, rural, urban, all the way across. And again, a good mix of our programs to really show who we are. And I think the chairman's got a great point. Your oyster food might be quite popular, I'm sure.
I think President Mancini needs to have her folks apply for a grant from the Tobacco Trust Fund Commission, because that aquaculture is agriculture.
Yeah.
And that might be a good program if you're needing some funding for it, for equipment or just have your folks take a look, because I know that the first week in January is when that grant when the grants will be, or the applications will be posted.
Good thought, Julie.
Dr. Cox, I had one thing. You guys may be already doing this. I brought it up at the president's meeting. One thing that happens when you go into a biennium is all the different associations put in their biennium goals, legislative agendas. And I know some of them, the employer associations, will overlap with workforce. So getting in front of some of these employer, I know the Economic Developers Association, the NC Tech, NC Bio, NC Chamber, construction, different, they're probably putting together their stuff right now, and we don't want them to come in with a workforce agenda that's not necessary, that gets in front of Propel, because that could happen rather easily just because they haven't heard from us if we're careful.
That's good feedback, Scott. We're out there just confirming we're in a lot of those already. We're going to confirm that we're staying in there as a priority with those different associations.
Yeah, while we're on that, I know there was a charge from the President's Association, or at least the Legislative Committee, to generate additional letters of support. And President Mancini, we've seen a couple additional new ones come in from you. So thank you for your work on that. Saw about three, I think, three additional ones you got for us. So we've added that to the queue, growing the numbers. But yes, anything we can do to grow support. I know the EDA is already contacted. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, let me follow up on the Propel as well, Alex. We had this discussion last week where, a lot of organizations believe Propel is done.
Yeah.
I got comments from outside the state. Boy, you guys did a great job getting that new funding model approved. And I said, well, it hasn't been funded yet, so it's not in place. So we can't lose sight as a system or individual colleges. And I went back to look at things some holes we need to plug as we go into this legislative session and make sure it gets approval. But I know we had some colleges with up to 24 letters of support, like at Southeastern and Brunswick and College of the Albemarle. But we had 10 colleges with no letters and only one college with 12 more with only one, which means a letter came from their college. So we really need to go back to all the colleges. We should have 58 letters from each individual colleges, and everyone should have at least one external endorsement of Propel. We've got to keep the energy on this. We can't assume it's over the line. And then the other thing from a system office perspective that I've been really focused on working with President Cox is being Propel ready. As we go in and have these discussions, it's not just about redistributing money or providing additional money. It's changing the way we go to market with our offerings, which means there's some things we probably have to stop doing in preparation of Propel and look at our business a little bit differently. So again, there's still some lifting to do on Propel. We can't think assume it's done. But getting all the letters in from all the schools and every school having at least one outside organization providing a letter. And again, the system office has the list of where we got the letters. So if you need help, if you want us to share it with you, we can do that as well.
That's great feedback, Chairman Looney. I wonder, Andrew, I don't put you too much on the spot, but I wonder if you might just share a little bit about some of what we have been doing, just programmatically trying to get things tuned up here for Propel.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been going on a bit of a road tour from our conferences, kind of delivering the benefits of Propel and what it means at a local level. We're going with senior administrators for continuing education as well as curriculum programs. We're reaching out to the public safety team. So again, all different threads, the customized training directors, so they all know and understand kind of how Propel NC works at the local level, and they're asking good questions. One of the things we're starting to get into is how this can help the apprenticeship program, and that with Propel, you can start customizing a few more programs for accelerated workforce training that really tailor quickly to the apprenticeship training program needs versus maybe a 2-year program. So these are some of the areas we're getting into. And I apologize if my signal's going in and out. I'm getting a low bandwidth signal, but hopefully you all heard most of that.
You're crystal clear, Andrew. Thank you for sharing that. Andrew's sitting in on behalf of Brian Merritt, who is off on a family vacation this week. So thanks for chipping in there, Andrew, and sharing some of the good work you all are doing. Other thoughts from the group on Propel?
Alex, I have a question for you, sir. I have heard that you and I think Philip may have done some presentations last year to different committees with the General Assembly. And in the past, we would often do a call out to all of the trustees and the presidents and anybody who was close by to come and sit in those with you. Would you be open to that? And it would be an opportunity, I think, for us to show our support of you as well as maybe answer some additional questions.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So we did have the opportunity to present before a House committee last year. Put it in my legislative update and communicated with Julie and the chairs. I think Julie was there with a couple others. I can't remember who all was there. But long story short, yes, I did kind of put out that message to Dr. McGinnis, who was the legislative chair. I think President Leatherwood at that time, but and tried to limit as much as many people as I could. And you were out that time. And Chairman Looney also attended. So, but long story short, yes, of course I will. So at least if you can attend, you can tune in and listen. I know a handful of presidents did as well. I think it was graduation season for y'all, if I remember correctly, during that time. So a lot couldn't make it, unfortunately.
So what we'll do, Andy, to your point, is try to, when we know it's well ahead of time, sometimes we get notice, we know it's going to be next week or 2 weeks out, we got a schedule. certainly we'll get that out. It's great to have the stands there full of presidents who are amening the message and can stand up and talk about it if called upon. What does that look like at the local level? Does this resonate? Sometimes it's a quicker, hey, we want you down here tomorrow to present something. So we'll do the best we can when we get quick turnaround like that, even then to get it out and with no expectation and everybody can drop everything they're doing on the dime, but sometimes you can. And so we'll do the best we can to get the word out to the presidents.
Yeah, I think last year it was within 24 hours. So now that you said that, that was the case.
It's a pretty quick turnaround once in a while. But go ahead, Julian.
I'd ask if you would make sure you're getting up with Julie, because
Yes.
she'll get up with me as legislative co-chair for the trustees. It's quick for me to get up there. I think we'd have a number of trustees certainly who, as we're trying to, be part of the team to help get Propel across the finish line to get it funded. Having our trustees engaged. And Alex, if you're as you're making your visits, and as we're talking, if we share the information on where we're getting questions from legislators so that we can make sure that we're giving them the information they need to say, yes, we understand this. Yeah, we're supportive of funding this because we've got the answers to our questions. Anything that, when we're talking to the legislators, so we can share that information with you folks up in the state, office. But, when you're getting that, if you're getting some pushback or some folks saying, well, I haven't heard from my folks, on the local level, so that we can make sure we're coordinating that, because we're going to make sure we're saying the same thing, like I say, the same hymn book, the same hymn, same, verse, and the same line. To make sure that we, get that coordinated message through to everybody.
Doing that's great feedback. And again, I think that this really needs to be a two-way street. So we'll want to keep you all looped in with what we're hearing. And it's just as important with what you all are hearing out there in the field when you're hearing from your individual legislators or the leadership you talk with to, share that feedback with us. Hey, this is what I'm hearing about Propel or whatever. That's always helpful for us to hear because you may be hearing something a little different than what we are. So that's helpful to get that feedback and input. That's a great role our trustees and presidents play is, giving us insight into what they're hearing out there across the state.
So, on the final note, I want to just thank everybody on the screen. I know, the lack of enrollment growth funding or delay of enrollment growth was very stressful for a lot of colleges. And I think we stood together, and just thank you for, your support on that. And thankfully, we don't have to have another state board meeting before the funds are coming out due to the foresight of Philip and everybody else. So, that was a high stress time. Got through it together. So just thank you for your support as always.
So one other quick thing I'll put out to the group, I assume this is a pretty easy yes for folks, but one other thing we talked about, Alex, with the long session, with this enrollment growth coming in late this year, so some mechanism to think about I know the legislature doesn't love the word carryover, but some mechanism to be able to give some flexibility where we can on the enrollment growth, essentially to be able to carry it over if needed. I assume that would be something that colleges would favor if we can introduce anything like that in the long session to give us some flexibility. Is that accurate, or is that important to you all to have as for us to work on college level?
I wouldn't say it's not important, but I don't know if carry forward is the best way to put it versus a reallocation.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was kind of touching on that being a little sensitive way of putting that, but effectively you got a pretty sizable influx of funding, and we will make sure you're not having to hurry up and spend it versus take your time and spend it well. Okay, all right, well, let's shift, we've got about 20 minutes or so left. If we can, let's shift to our last agenda item. And talk a little bit about this council itself. So Chairman Looney and I have had a lot of conversations about the makeup of the committee, and I think he and I are united on wanting to make this an impactful time where we can have good dialogue like we're having here today, and get real feedback and input. The very name of the committee is it's an advisory council, so it was set up for this group to be able to advise us on kind of important topics. So we want to make sure we're doing that and not just reporting out from here kind of what's going on. So Chairman Looney, I don't know if you want to share any of your kind of insights or thoughts, put you on the spot a little bit to see kind of what you're hoping to get out of our committee or this council going forward, and then maybe we can open it up for dialogue from the group on how to make this impactful and a good use of everybody's time.
Well, I've been on this call for a year, and there was never a lot of advising going on. It was more like an update from the system office. So I recommended to President Cox. I met with Jane. I think President Heatherly, you were with us. We talked about this about 3 or 4 months ago. How do we make this more into an advisory council, which is what it was set up for back in, I think, around 2018, versus just reporting the news like we tend to always do. So today is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts on what you'd like to advise us on. A couple of areas I would bring up, which are strategic priorities for our system. Those are ERP, which we've got 5 pilot colleges. That's probably the most important project we have going on throughout the system right now is the ERP upgrade. And we're on a very tight schedule right now with ERP, and a major component of that is buy-in from the colleges. So I think that's an area we could use additional feedback to make sure we can deliver this on time. And right now we are not on time. The second is CRM. Some colleges like Dr. Rawls at Wake Tech have extensive CRM systems. Most of our colleges do not. Right now, we're planning to deploy 10 colleges here this year. The results are at colleges who have leveraged these tools have been dramatic. I was with Janet Spriggs from Forsyth Tech last week for dinner, and she's actually going to come to our board meeting next month to share the success she's had with things like CRM. But I think if we look at this advisory council, we've got to look at things like technology in the ERP space, technology in the CRM space, to make sure we are leveraging the best tools across the system. And rather than thinking tactically all the time on this call, strategically, what do we want to get accomplished as a team over the next 3 years? And as we look at things like CRM, which I got additional funding was secured last year to start this work, $1 million. I'd like to go back to the system to ask for additional funding this time around. But the impact from things like CRM can be dramatic. Because we've got to do a better job, especially when we have issues like the FAFSA completions. I read this morning that FAFSA is on track for this year, but we'll see how that pans out. But that's how it stands right now. But when we have a crisis, can we actively get the message out to the right people? And are we putting information on the community colleges in the areas that young people and adult learners go for information? And that's what CRM enables us to do. And in some cases, I was with the Belt Foundation last week with presidents from around the country, and some of them we got in discussions about even having call centers so that students get a seamless approach. Like McDonald's, any McDonald's you go to, you have you don't have 58 different versions of a cheeseburger. It tastes the same and you're served the same. In many cases for CRM, are there ways we can give a seamless customer experience? In particular, not necessarily for the Wake Techs and the Central Piedmonts and the larger colleges, but many of the other colleges that maybe don't have the resources and technology to be able to reach these students in the most effective way. So that was my intent in sitting down with President Heatherly, Dr. Cox, and Gene Reeves, president of the Trustees Association, to figure out how we can make this call more meaningful, or maybe at some point discontinue it. And again, I appreciate your feedback, and I know President Cox would appreciate your feedback today.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. Just open it up to the group, the kind of with that as the backdrop. How do we continue to make this even more impactful and to make sure we're using it for the intention as originally intended to get that advice and counsel from this group? Any thoughts?
Well, I'll jump in because I think I've been pointed at. So I would say, as someone who's getting ready to roll off, I would hate to see this group not stay in place. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to have a lot of different voices in one room. I think it gives us a chance to really make sure that we're working efficiently and effectively. Chair Looney, I think your topics are spot on. I think there's probably some other topics that maybe the trustees would like to bring up as well from their perspectives. I do think one of the things that makes this a little bit more awkward to give advice is doing it virtually. I would love to see us maybe combine this with another meeting where we could have everybody together, maybe not for every one of the advisory committees, but at least for maybe one or two of them every year. And I do think, in a good advisory committee meeting means that we're all talking and there's a lot of listening going on as well. And I think we kind of started to do that a little bit today, and maybe really facilitating the conversations to be sure that they're very in-depth. So I think it's meaningful, and I think it's important, and I think there's some low-hanging things that we can do to make it more impactful.
It's great impact, great input presently. Appreciate that. I share your sentiment about these virtuals. It's easy to do this, but boy, really good, thoughtful conversation happens so much more robustly when you're sitting literally around a table with each other. So we've got the Presidents Association quarterly or meetings that happen in a big way a couple times a year. We've got the Trustees Association with some regular meetings. So that'd be one mechanism where we have one or the other of these groups together, or we could link on and maybe have a time designated during the conference for this group to kind of peel off and meet. I love that idea. Other thoughts?
I'll follow up with some of Mandy's comments. I would agree. I would not welcome just totally eliminating this committee. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we might want to rethink the representation or the size of the group. I do think it's an excellent opportunity for all of the major players, all the major stakeholders to be engaged. I think eliminating it, the biggest hit we would have on that is our trustees. While the trustees, as you pointed out, Jeff, do meet, they don't meet, I don't believe, as regularly as, say, the Presidents Association, the State Board, and we don't have the opportunity to interact with the trustees as much as we do some of the other groups, System Office, for example. So I would really hate to make a move which would at least be perceived as eliminating the opportunity for more involvement there. But I do think, I'm not a person who appreciates meetings which are show and tell. That's not my most favorite thing in the world to do. But I do think an opportunity here to think about bigger picture items, even our processes, continuous improvement. I mean, what are steps we can take to get to a better place? I mean, I'll just throw a couple of things out there. How long have we been talking about the threat of system consolidation? And I have never heard any of our associations take a position on any of that, nor do I know that we've ever even really talked about what our response to that might be collectively. Other issues, I mean, most recently in our president's meeting, we talked about working better together as a team and not necessarily going down a path which seems to be self-serving to any one particular college or one particular area. I'll give you a point in case, multi-campus consideration. And Ken Engel will be the very first to tell you that this was well before his time. But, we did have a proposal that came from Alamance Community College regarding multi-campus consideration. They did not, and I think the Finance Committee appropriately responded to Alamance. They did not meet the criteria that was in place. And I think to their credit, asked for more information from Alamance, and as I understand it, never got that. But unfortunately, there was a lobbying effort with one of our state legislators to change the criteria. I'm not sure that's the best approach for us as a system, and I think your presidents would agree with that. That kind of approach, I think, introduces chaos. And that can work in all different ways, not just a particular college lobbying for a particular change. It could even be, let's suppose the system office has some sort of intent to control and wants to lobby themselves with the state legislator. So, but we need to have discussion and talk about these kinds of things, in my opinion. Improving processes. I think our election and re-election of presidents is probably takes more time than it ought to. And we can talk about specific examples, but you've got a lot of professionals that are interested in these positions, or at least we hope so. And there is a sense of confidentiality around it. But if it's very time consuming, then that can have a negative impact on whether or not your candidates are even going to stay engaged with us. So there's just a number of issues, I think, that we could talk about on getting to a better place for our system and positioning our system for the future.
Thank you, President Elliott. Good feedback. Certainly several topics you kind of referenced there that all could warrant some good dialogue with a group of diverse stakeholders here. Thank you for that. Other thoughts? Scott, please.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to echo behind David. I think, this process is kind of a codified process that came through an informal process years ago that really started because there were cases in the past where we, had kind of legislative agendas that came out of either different groups but weren't fully agreed on. Some things like, eliminating the program auditing 1 year, 4-year college degree or bachelor's degrees was another year. I think we did have conversations about the consolidation stuff, but it was kind of created as an informal bringing together the trustees, the system office, the state system, and the presidents for that process. So, I think it became codified after the challenges were like dealing with Martin and what do you do about Martin Community College at a time. So, we need to, I think if we got rid of it, we would find we would need it back again. And I think the challenge we have as a system is because we have so much breadth, so much diversity within our state and within the different colleges, but the challenge, we have so much breadth that we end up talking about a breadth of things, but we hardly ever talk in depth about anything. So I think the challenge with this, the challenge with this group, but also the opportunity is picking the one or two things that need to be talked about a little more in depth that rarely we talk about, but all the different groups are talking about, because you hear somebody, maybe the board say something or somebody say something, all of a sudden you're trying to interpret what that means, but you're not sure, and those interpretations can lead you a certain place. So, I think it's picking the few things that we need to go in depth about is the key.
If I might, I know we said, I think during the last meeting that, none of us for reports. I think if, the staff has documents or PowerPoints that, they want to share with us, we all read, and can read it probably faster than sometimes people can speak the words. So again, if there are things from a report standpoint that might lead to some questions that we can get back, if I'm a member of this advisory council moving forward, it might raise some questions that I can get back to Chairman Looney and say, okay, this has raised a question, this report raised a question, and is this something that we need to have a full discussion in the advisory council? Same thing in taking a look at the multi-campus funding. I mean, when we got a commission that put our health sciences building in Harnett County right next to the hospital, but we can't get that included in our multi-campus funding for, the Harnett County campus. Those are things I think that we do need to have a discussion, and, the trustees, along with the presidents and you folks on the state board, and in the state system office, I think having that discussion is beneficial. I think, from the standpoint of how can we coordinate better, I think, from the standpoint of the trustees, getting feedback from you folks on, from Alex and the staff on, the legislative issues, and as we're trying to, put emphasis on the things that Chairman Looney has talked about, I think that we can do that. The trustees are certainly willing to do that. I think some of the concern is with trustees who might have gone rogue in the past, but I can tell you, as we are trying to move forward together, we're committed to try and make sure that, again, we're saying exactly the same thing. So there's absolutely no confusion. But I think, sometimes the trustees are looked at as an afterthought when, I really think that we can be a resource. And when we look at, the number of trustees we have all across the state, we're a grassroots organization. We can take advantage of that grassroots organization, because that's one of the things we tried to do in the last meeting in Asheville, trying to make sure that we had a list of who was well connected, who could contact legislators quickly, and as we're trying to make sure that we're, from our legislative agenda or as other things come up, to make sure that we're sharing that information. I think the reports, we can read them if the stuff is submitted to us. Same thing as we've got something we need to submit to you for consideration, we can get that, so that, the discussion is true discussion, and looking at things strategically and developing a strategic plan on how to move the agenda forward. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
And Julian, I would agree with the comments that you've made. And it seems to me that we've come up with a list of issues that we need to talk about. But what we may need to do at this point is look at the process of how we could consider those. When President Lee talked about, we probably need to get together, and we may need to get together for more than an hour at a time and have focused discussions on the issues that are the most important for us. So I'd like for us to see us put some time and thought into the process and how we can effectively be an advisory group for the state board.
And
It's
if
a
we
good
could
thought,
arrange,
Ed.
if we could arrange, where the trustees are meeting twice a year, if we could have, the meeting, 2 of the meetings that are coordinated with that, and then other meetings is with the presidents, where we get together at the same time the presidents are meeting, if they're meeting monthly. I'm sure the folks who are in this meeting are willing to try and come to the meetings. I mean, we accepted this role. We're committed to try and work together to make things happen strategically.
And we meet twice a year as a total group, but also during that time, we pull our board chairs together for another meeting. And then our executive committee meets many times during the year. And we have a network that we can get the information out to all of our trustees.
I agree with a lot of what everyone has said. An agenda ahead of time, maybe significantly ahead of time, might be really valuable, because our regional presidents meet, and if we know that there are topics that the system or the state board or trustees association would like feedback on, then we could bring those topics to our regional meetings and bring back some meaningful feedback beyond just our own who are representing those regions. So I think that would be very helpful. And I know I saw we only have 5 more minutes or something. I agree, we probably need not to have a hard stop on it, but one of the things returning to what Chair Looney said about technology and ERP, and one of the things our our college, and I've heard other colleges are concerned about, is the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and how in April 26, we are all going to be accountable to much more stringent technology guidelines for disabilities. And smaller colleges are really struggling with how they're going to implement those things. And I don't know that some of these federal Title IX, for example, at the trustees meeting, when Dean Shatley made a presentation, I was really aware of what he was talking about, and my trustees were, because we were one of the colleges named that was exempt from switching over Title IX. But I was aware that a lot of folks in the room were not familiar with that. And so I think especially federal regulations and changes that are coming up, we could really use a lot of support on that to come up with unified approaches to addressing those needs on our campuses. But I find it really valuable and hope that it's something that will stick around.
And another point that I'd like to make is that as we look at how we will structure the meetings in the future, we're all in education, and we know that we have trained facilitators that can help guide our discussion and help focus what we do, and also help everyone to participate in the discussions and the ideas. So I think we should take advantage of those opportunities as well.
That's a great point, and everybody. So we're at the hour here almost. So Chairman Looney, if you're going to add a comment. Then
Well, the other thing I always like at a call is a call to action at the end. You know, we've had a great discussion. So what do we do next? So President Cox, I think we need to, whether it's a survey. I think Ed, everybody made good points. Ed, the points you just made here at the end. I think this can be a much more effective meeting, but there has to be more thought put into it. It's got to be more structured. And I think the people on the phone have to have more input into the topics rather than the hot issues of today. So my opinion is the call to action is for you to figure out, whether it's a survey or whatever, determine what the real mission of this organization is, and what are topics, how are we going to run it in the future, how often is it, but this is the exact kind of discussion I wanted to get started, is how do we make this meaningful, or maybe this work is included somewhere else. And I think we got a good indication today that there is room for improvement. We can do it more effectively. So let's just take that opportunity, and I'll assume you got the ball from here to put some meat on the bones working with all the folks on the phone.
Very good. You just summarized this the way I was going to ask Dr. Gold to kind of bring us home, but you did a great summary right there. So I think we've got our marching orders. We'll collect this feedback that you all have given. It's been great dialogue. I love the idea of us maybe digging in with a little more. It's hard to get everything talked through and have a lot of quality input in a 1 hour meeting, but maybe we can look at the structure of that, Chairman Looney, and look at a couple of more substantive meetings during the year, and then maybe a couple of other virtual meetings. We'll come back with a structure. We'll figure out a way to do some sort of survey of this group to get solidify topics that are of interest and from the group, and we'll come back with a proposal to share back with the group soon. Okay,
Jeff, we'll get in comments to you here within a few days too. Just things we all sort of agree we should work on, so you'll have something to go on from the trustees at least.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you've got some specific ideas on things you'd like us to include, like in that survey, just to make sure we're even putting out potential topics, Gene, for people to think about whether or not things we want to put on the agenda this first our next session, and we'll look at the dates of that and try to coordinate at least one or two of those with existing meeting dates. I heard that pretty consistently from the group, that there's a desire to do some of this work face to face together. So we'll look for opportunities for that as well.
We do not mind driving, so you have it wherever you want to have it. We'll be there.
Perfect. All right, folks, great discussion. Thank you all for your interest, your feedback, and we'll keep sharpening the saw here and we'll make sure this is something that all of you find to be worthwhile. We certainly love getting the advice and counsel from this diverse group. So thank you for the input, and we'll be back in touch soon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Texas President Hogan said.